Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Dr. Elliott. This is the Heal Your Relationship with Money workshop series. I am so excited that you decided to come and spend some time here with me, with us on this journey. And this is such a beautiful journey if people only knew the secret, right? There are so many pieces to this journey that talking about it really doesn't even do it justice, but I will give an attempt. Okay. So my philosophy here with this workshop series is like, everybody has some glitches around money in their psyche, right? And we get to go in and heal up those glitches as we are healing our relationship with money. But the kind of cool thing that happens that we don't talk about as much, until it actually starts happening in the class is every time we find a negative belief, every time we find a place where maybe we've had a pain point, a trauma of some kind, that came in maybe from our early childhood, or maybe even as an adult, maybe we've had some interactions with society and with the world around money. Every time we find one of those, we get to heal it. And the cool part is that when we identify a negative belief, usually what happens is its equal and opposite is trying to manifest. And I think that's the part people don't realize. We get stuck in, the pain of the thing that we're trying to heal, but not really realizing that, when this is actually healed, there's something really beautiful. Like grief turns into joy, lack turns into abundance. Literally the equal and opposite is trying to manifest. And so when I'm doing my Monday night classes that kind of built up to this workshop, we talk a lot about, when we introduce love into something, it pushes up everything unlike itself. And what I mean by that is like when we finally start loving those parts of ourselves that we have held at bay, rejected, and sometimes also in other people, then it starts to come up. It starts to come up, and it's purging out. It's kind of like when somebody starts doing therapy or somebody starts doing coaching or really intensely starts on their self-help journey. A lot of times all of those sort of skeletons in the closet start to appear and go, hey, what about me? Hey, what about me? And it's not to scare you away from the journey. It's really because finally these things are being acknowledged. And it's like, if we only knew that once we acknowledge them, once we even spend 30 seconds, in that moment of healing, in that moment of loving those deep, dark places in ourselves, they resolve. They actually start to resolve. It's the same idea in yoga when you have like a stretch that you're doing and you breathe into this stretch, you breathe into the pain, and it starts to release. That energy releases, right? So the idea here is like, don't be afraid of your pain. Don't be afraid. Money has a lot of shame around in the past. So a lot of folks have a lot of shame around money. And, this is the place to heal that shame. This is the place to heal, anything that could be preventing you from living your most abundant life. Lots of us have, we were taught, oh, it's better to give than to receive. A lot of us were taught, oh, it's selfish to want nice things, or to want to live a lavish lifestyle or whatever. But I know the kind of people that I attract because I know who I am. And the kind of people that I attract in my practice are people who are hardworking, who've been grinding and grinding and grinding on that treadmill of work, and are usually really hard workers and wondering why they can't get ahead. And did you ever stop to consider that maybe it's not about how hard you're working, but it's about how you're thinking? Maybe it's not about how hard you're working, it's about how hard you're thinking. I'm going to say it one more time. Not about how hard you're working, but how hard you're thinking, right? So the thinking part can change. The thinking part can change. And let me tell you too, as we age, the working really hard for money, it's not going to end well, right? Because there's going to come a time in our life when we just really can't physically work that hard anymore, right? Or mentally. I mean, sometimes even the stress of the kind of work. So a couple of things happen when we enter into this relationship with money thing, right? more than a couple of things, but I'm going to highlight a couple of things that happen as we identify those negative beliefs. We start to learn that that focusing on receiving, not just receiving money, but yes, receiving money, but other kinds of receiving, like receiving love and even the way we eat healthier and how our gut works, because gut health is also part of receiving, right? Receiving nutrients into your body and how your body absorbs those nutrients. Same, how do we absorb love from our environment, from our family? And that same relationship is like how we absorb money, how we bring money into our lives, how we utilize it, how we spend it or invest it, those kinds of things, right? So healing your relationship with money is so much about receiving, and it's so much about self-worth and self-love. So that's maybe the part that a lot of people don't always, put on the front burner, so to speak. Okay. Then the next part is like healing judgment. So I mentioned earlier, a lot of folks have a lot of shame around money, especially if they've come from a place of poverty. Well, let me tell you, I was not born wealthy in this world. I was born into poverty like everyone else. My mom was on welfare when I was a kid, and it was really hard. I had a rough, growing up time, and I had nobody to teach me about money. I had to learn it all in my 20s and 30s and some of my 40s too, some difficult lessons around money. And some of the biggest ones were around how I judged other people who had money when I didn't, and what that must mean about them. And so when I got to a point in my career where I really started to make a lot of money, I had to really look at like, oh, now I'm one of those people. And I had to really start changing the way that I thought about myself and my relationship with money, and hence how I think about other people and their relationship with money. So, I think of money as an energetic exchange, but I also think of it as a tool. It's a lot of things that that don't necessarily add up to the belief systems that we were brought up with as kids. Okay. And then the third part of this course is really about joy. It's when we have enough energy flow around money in our lives, and we have quality time, and a lot of times people go through career changes. We become more aligned spiritually with what we're doing for a living. Maybe we're doing something more meaningful than we were doing before, or it changes a bit to just adjust into spiritual alignment with us. And usually that brings so much more joy to folks. And part of living in joy is also living in gratitude. So being grateful, giving back. So in Native traditions, Native cultures, there's kind of a series, there's 4 pillars that we live our lives by. And they're kind of similar to Erikson's psychosocial stages of development, if you're familiar with that in psychology. But there's only 4 stages. And those 4 stages are belonging, mastery, interdependence, and generosity. And so we get to this point of where we get to be generous. When we have really healed our relationship with money, we get to enter into this generosity phase. But we'll go through all 4 of those pillars in the class, and we'll understand like where we're at on that continuum of belonging, mastery, interdependence, and generosity. Those are really, really important keys for feeling like we belong in this world, feeling like we're good at something in this world, being able to work in collaboration with others, and then, giving that gift that we were meant to give to the world, bringing forth our own medicine that we are meant to bring into this world. And it's when we really step onto that medicine path, when we really start to give from our heart and from this place of beauty, I call it, this place of spiritual depth and authenticity, really is when true abundance starts to flow into our lives so easily. It's interesting how Native culture has shifted over the years from, in the old days, we lived in a very abundant world because everything we needed was all around us all the time. And we never felt like we had to take more than we needed because we knew it would always be there. And tomorrow we would go and get whatever, more of what we needed. And, obviously we would gather and hunt stuff for the winters to save over the winters, but there was always an expectation of abundance, right? And through colonization and all these other experiences that we've had, we've sort of lost that, well, hopefully we're getting it back now, but we've lost some of that trust in the world and trust in the universe and trust in the abundant flow of things. And so my goal here is for all people, not just Native people, but for all people to realign spiritually and to realign our relationship with money in a way that is congruent with our authentic self, in a way that allows for our families not only to be fed, but to be nurtured, and for us to have time to have quality relationships with our family members and with each other, and to bring back the joy in this world, to bring back culture and arts and creativity. And those things require time for us to, we're not supposed to be working 80 hours a week just to make ends meet, to pay the mortgage. We get to be in joy in this world. And so that is my hope for you and all of us going through this course together. I'm so excited that you're here, that you've made this choice to embark upon this journey, and may you have a beautiful and blessed rest of your day and enjoy the ride.